All right. Good evening, everybody. We're still trying to get that running. And as soon as that's running, then, we're good. Finally got it? Okay, good. So let's open with a word of prayer, and I'll just turn it over to you. Heavenly Father, in Jesus' name, thank you for this evening. Open our hearts and our minds to receive what you want us to hear and to see tonight, as well as what we can do to make an impact in our nation and in our state. In Jesus' name, amen.
Amen. Thank you, Pastor Vern. Good evening. It's good to have you here tonight. My name is Dale Witherington. My wife, Sue, and I, right over here, we lead a ministry called Restore Minnesota, and I bring that up only because we are very proud to be official missionaries of Word of Life Ministries. So we're really honored to be missionaries of your church and of your ministry. So tonight's going to be kind of fun. I want to give you a little bit of commercial on a couple up-and-coming Faith and Freedom events so that you can get them on your calendar, because both of these I would recommend that if you're in town, it'd be really good to be here and to bring others with you. And then Dieta asked me if I would bring a legislative update, and that's going to be really hard. So the good news is we have with us tonight Representative Brian Johnson. So I'm going to have Representative Johnson come, and we're just going to tag team a little bit. I'm going to ask him a few things. But we want to bring you up to speed because there's... Brian, have you, in your tenure, ever had a legislative session as aggressively ugly and nasty, not only in the bills themselves, but in the way one side of the aisle is treating the other side of the aisle? Have you ever had it this bad?
Never seen it this bad. They keep throwing out the word democracy. This is democracy. The United States is not a democracy. It's a constitutional republic. A democracy is mob rule.
Good. Thank you, Dieta.
We are a constitutional republic, so we have our constitution, our laws, and our rules that we follow. Democracy is just mob rule.
Yeah, rule by mob, and the mob is that's what it feels like down at the Capitol. We've had two of our Restore Minnesota leaders from community action teams. One, Pastor Ben Davis from the Brainerd area is now, I don't know if we call him Pastor Representative or Representative Pastor Ben Davis. He's now one of our state reps. And then Walter Hudson from my district. Both of these men that I've had relationships with for a number of years, I told them for the last couple of years how dark and evil it can be down there. And they've both pulled me aside and they said, I didn't prepare for half of it. So...
This is the worst I've ever seen. Okay. Evil is running the place right now.
So it's going to be really good to get Kendall up here in a few minutes so we can take charge and turn this thing around. Okay. So, but a couple of dates that you're going to want to get on your calendar. The dates are Thursday, May 18th and Friday, May 19th. Thursday and Friday, May 18th and 19th. So let me tell you about Thursday. Some of you will remember, I think it was about a year ago, maybe just over a year ago, Word of Life brought in for a Faith and Freedom event. We brought in Sharam Hadian. Sharam Hadian is a pastor from Patriot Church just outside of Knoxville, Tennessee. Which is kind of a fun. Think about that. Think about a church called Patriot Church. Just think about that. Okay. But Sharam, he and his family escaped Iran in 1979. Some of you will remember when our embassy was taken over and when the Ayatollah Khomeini came back into power to reinstate a very strict Sharia law in Iran. Sharam Hadian and his family escaped, went through Turkey, went through some other nations that have got some pretty nasty stuff going on, came here to America, and in the process of him being here, he found Jesus Christ. Let me rephrase that. Jesus found Sharam. Sharam wasn't looking for Jesus, but Jesus showed up. And Sharam gave his life to Christ. He was a police officer for a number of years in Spokane, Washington. He became a pastor there and then began a ministry called the Truth and Love Project. And he travels the country but he comes to Minnesota most frequently. Now, can anybody think why an ex-Muslim might want to come often to the state of Minnesota? Now that we have the official sound ordinance blown away by the Minneapolis City Council so we can have the Muslim prayer call 5 times a day. Now, for those of you who don't know, because some of you, how many of this is your first Faith and Freedom event? Anybody here for the first time? Okay, just a few of you. Okay, so for those of you who are going to want to attack me afterwards, I'm glad to talk with you. But you need to understand something about the Islamic system. Now, I'm distinguishing that from any individual person who might call themselves a Muslim. And that's really important for you to understand if you don't know that. When a new mosque comes into an area, and Minnesota now has a bunch of them, and they're funded by a group called NAIT, N-A-I-T, which is the Islamic trust that helps fund the Islamic expansion through the United States of America. Whenever a mosque is put into a community, that is the Islamic Republic planting their flag and claiming that community for Islam. It's not just like Christians putting a church and saying we're going to be the church of the community or the church of the area church. It is planting a flag saying this area is now declared to be an Islamic Republic and we are taking it over. That's how that works. When you turn over your largest city to allow them to do the 5 prayers per day, what you have just done in their eyes, see, it's important how they perceive it, not how we in their eyes, what you've just done is given permission to make Minnesota as a state an Islamic Republic. So people will ask me sometimes where I'm from, and I will say I'm from the United Soviet Socialist Chinese Communist Islamic Republic of Minnesota. A little bit more truth to that today than there was 10 years ago? Unfortunately.
100% more truth.
100% more truth. Now, I say that in you know, I give people, my wife, you know, I will answer for this.
And she is nodding yes.
Yeah, oh yeah. Vociferously. Sharam is going to help explain in detail what I just told you. He's coming to give the talk, Contend for Christ. The remnant church must not fall for this end-time deception. This is going to be about what is really happening, and it's not even behind the scenes anymore. What is happening in terms of the establishment of a one-world global religion. How many of you know what happened in Cairo, Egypt just a few weeks ago under this guise of one world religion? Anybody? Okay, some key religious leaders from multi-different religious organizations around the world gathered in Cairo, declaring their religion as climate change. They went to the Mount Sinai range. Now, what do you know about Mount Sinai? Remember Moses went to the top of Mount Sinai and he got the 10 Commandments from God? Well, nobody knows where that exact mountain is, but there's a Sinai range. So they went into the Sinai range and they came back down with the 10 Commandments of global climate change. Sharam is going to be addressing some of this stuff. Now, here's why it's important that we know this. Number one, some of you have heard me say this before. I played defense in college football. When I went out on the field on a Saturday, if we did our job during the week by studying our opponent's playbook, we had no fear whatsoever as to what they were going to throw at us. In fact, when they lined up, sometimes we knew before they did what they were going to do. And we could stop the advance of our opponent. So part of our mission in Restore Minnesota And part of the mission of Word of Life Ministries is to educate people enough so that we don't have to live in fear, but we can dig in our heels, we can stop the advance, and not only can we stop the advance, we can push back. And it's time we do that. That's why I'm excited to hear from Kendall here in a few minutes, okay? So Sharam is going to be here on Thursday night, the 18th. So please plan on being here. They'll start at 7 o'clock. The very next night is the official Faith and Freedom Night, and we're bringing in Alex Newman from the Epic Times. He's an internationally renowned journalist. He's got a lot of updates in terms of, from his perspective, what is going on in Minnesota and what is going on in the country behind the scenes. So again, we get a better understanding of the other side. I'm going to just call it the enemy's playbook. Okay? Some of you are readers. If you are readers, you might want to pick up a book like Rules for Radicals by Saul Alinsky. You might want to pick up the book The Blueprint by Whitwer. These are two. You might want to read the explanatory memorandum. You can get that online. It's 18 pages. It's free. These are the exact playbooks. You hear that crack in my voice? I'm going through puberty again, apparently. These are the exact playbooks of the Islamic and communist systems for the takeover of the United States of America. It's real. Now, when we know it's real, we don't have to be afraid. I mean, we're a bunch of central Minnesota rednecks. I'm sure you're well stocked at home. But we need to do this right. Okay? So we want to educate properly so we can lead to a Holy Spirit-led engagement, not just an off-the-wall emotional ready, fire, aim engagement, if that makes sense. So come and get educated. Come hear these two excellent people on those two nights, May 18th and 19th. Now, from a legislative update, go ahead.
One last thing.
Yeah.
You talked about the rule books and how they plan to do it. One thing to remember, they don't play by any rules.
Exactly. Yeah, they make up the rules as they go. You talk about democracy. In the process of them rewriting legislation, one of the biggest attacks against our nation right now is our religious liberties. But they will tell you that inclusivity trumps our First Amendment rights of not just our religious liberty rights, but all 5 of them. Okay, there's 5 rights in the First Amendment. Okay, freedom of religion, freedom of speech, freedom of the press, freedom to peacefully assemble, and freedom to bring your grievances before your government. And they will say that the term of inclusivity trumps your First Amendment rights. We've been told that to our face. The Constitution means what they want it to mean only as they rewrite it. And when we were saying that 8, 9, 10 years ago, people will tell us we're nuts. They're not telling us we're nuts anymore because all they're doing is nodding. People are doing like you're doing. You're nodding your head saying, oh, yeah, we see it. The question is now, what are we going to do about it? Read Eric Metaxas' book, Letter to the American Church. Because what's happening in America today is what happened in Germany in World War II, and I'll be darned if we're going to let that happen here. So, last Friday, there were 3 bills that passed only because, and I hope you all understand this, and I'm not here to represent either party, especially one of the two. Okay? I am not here to represent a party. But right now, for the first time since I've been a chaplain at the state capitol, it's the first time that one party has had the House, the Senate, and the governor's chair at the same time.
No, it's not just that they are not being reserved as they were in the past.
Well, since I've been there. I'm saying since I've been there. I'm not saying it's the first time, but it's just since I've been there. So my point is this. Right now, the Republican Party has no power whatsoever. They can't stop anything unless they can get some of the other side to flip. So because the other side is being run by the communists, not by Democrats. Now, I'm not saying there aren't Democrats in the party, but that's not who's running the party. You need to know this if you don't know it already. Okay? One of the bills that got passed last week was the gender-affirming bill. Tell us a little bit about that, please.
The gender-affirming bill makes Minnesota a sanctuary state for anybody outside the state to come here and have, it could actually be a 1-month-old child have gender transformation surgery. And what makes it even worse is right now we have agreements with other states to honor their child custody paperwork and stuff like that. If that happens now with this bill that passed that the governor did sign, we will not honor those court orders.
So in other words, in Utah, where Utah made a state law that it's against the law in Utah for a couple or any parent to take a child out of Utah to go get the transition surgery, it's illegal for them there. Minnesota just said, if I'm hearing you correctly, come to Minnesota because we can do it for you anyway?
Yep. And they will not honor any extradition or any court paperwork from the state that you actually live in. But it's so egregious, somebody could kidnap a child, claim they have custody, come to Minnesota, have the surgery done. If somebody comes in, no, you can't do that, that's our child. The state takes custody and continues the process.
Okay. Now, in that bill, part of the language was, and I talked with the author through writing, because they won't talk to me face to face apparently. If parents in Minnesota will not allow their minor child to surgically transition, part of the bill was to help if any one of the parents could be convinced, but the state could come in and say the child wants to transition and we'll pull the child out and transition them anyway and then put them in a government housing?
That is correct. The state will take custody of your child.
Okay, you hear that?
Can't make this up.
Okay.
Until the surgery is done.
Till the surgery is done, okay? And then what they didn't say, and this is the implication. The implication was if you are parents who don't want your minor child to transition, it's kind of what Brian just said, the state will send social service agencies, because one of the 45 goals of the Communist Party is to give social service agencies the power of arrest and be able to come into your home and take your child out because you are a negative influence on your child. That's another goal. You're a negative influence on your child, and the government can now do what they want with that child, and they don't have to bring the child back home. These are written goals, folks. All you got to do is open up your browser and type in 45 goals. They're being carried out. Last summer when Pelsby, the Professional Education Licensing and Standards Board, wrote their revisions, 77 testimonies, 71 against it, because Pelsby requires all teachers in Minnesota, correct me if I'm wrong, Brian, all teachers in Minnesota, once that got approved, must subscribe to two things. Number one, they must subscribe to a Marxist philosophy and a Marxist worldview to teach it in our public school systems, or our private school systems, or our homeschool systems, if you want a license. Second thing is, you must teach the curriculum that the government, FBI and Department of Justice, has deemed some of the curriculum pornographic, child pornography, but if the school system or the library system wants them, you must teach them, because our public school system and the library system are exempt from obscenity laws. Am I overstating the case?
You're 100% correct.
Ma'am?
My mom was just about the surgery, was reading the Star Tribune, and she's under the impression that any minor will not be allowed in Minnesota to have surgery. But I'm just wondering if they're just, painting flowers and...
Do your mother a favor and cancel her subscription to the Socialist Republic of the Star and Tribune.
The Star and Sickle is not going to, yeah. Okay.
So the bill legislation allows for surgery of even a minor down to 1 month old of gender transforming surgery.
When we're discussing on the floor, we were talking 7 and 9 year olds, but there's There is no lower limit.
Okay, so for those of you who are either online or were recording, the question had to do with an article in the Star Tribune. It's so hard to say. That somebody read and was under the impression that minors cannot go through the sexual transition surgeries in Minnesota. That's not accurate. They can. Okay, now, there's one other thing, and this will be the last piece so we can get Kendall up here. Yesterday or the day before, the author of some of these bills, Lee Finke, wants to remove statutory language that now protects pedophiles because they are youth-attracted adults, and wants to give protection to that class. There was a debate on the floor, and one of our state representatives who opposed it, our understanding is there were some threats against this person to the point that she wanted and felt the need to have security escort her to her car because of how she was Could you verify or not verify that, or just address that for a second, please?
Yeah, that was an incident. I was not on the floor when it happened,
Okay.
but I did hear what happened. Representative Gilman sent out an email showing what, I would say the one mistake she made was just only sent it to the DFL instead of everybody, but showing how graphic, very graphic, and how destructive the gender transformation surgery is. Now, Don Gilman is 5'1". You're going to tend to be 5'1". Lee Finke, formerly male, now halfway through the transition, is 6'4". He's built like a linebacker.
Yeah, he's much bigger than I am.
And he is on top of Representative, standing over her, yelling, screaming, and shaking his finger at her on the floor of the House. We have since sent a letter of dissent to be in the official transcripts of the House records, explaining our disappointment and how wrong that was.
Based on the rules, isn't that an ethics violation?
That is an ethics violation. We'll see what happens.
We'll see what happens. Yeah, probably nothing. But
we saw what happened with John Thompson.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, voters had to vote. Voters had to vote them out. Just dropping a hint.
Yeah.
Okay. Now, the last thing that we'll bring up is something that is being discussed, and that is Minnesota's making news again nationally because they're going to debate something called bias registration. Mm-hmm. How many of you are familiar with that one? Okay, only a few of you. So the intention of this legislation, should it go through, is if I say something you don't like, let me rephrase that. When I say something you don't like, you can report me to the government, and it's not a crime, but my name now goes on a watch list. I told my wife, I said, we're going to go in alphabetical order. It's going to start with W because, Witherington, I'm already on it. Here's the point. This is the thought police coming after us.
Yep. They passed that out of the House earlier this week. We debated on that for about 2 hours on that topic alone. And it is the thought police. They're going to keep a register. They claim it's going to have no names or anything. It's just keeping track of what's happening.
Whatever.
We don't believe that. If this is the thought police, they will be coming to you. It's exactly what happened in Germany.
Exactly.
Yep.
And they already have the phone line set up because if you remember, Governor Qualls set up a phone line to snitch on your neighbors if you're having people over.
Yep.
Same concept.
Well, let's thank Representative Johnson here for being with us again tonight. Thank you, Brian. Okay, I'll take that. Okay. Can you imagine what's going to happen to you and me if they actually put this thing through? we're going to lead the charge.
It's all right.
I don't think they're going to shut up Ron Wolbert. No. And they're sure not going to shut me up, and I know they're not going to shut up Pastor Vern either. And I would dare say they're not going to shut up our special guest. It was a real privilege. It's been a very privilege for myself and my wife to get to know, to some degree, both Kendall and Sheila Qualls. Kendall and I first connected before he made his run for governor at our favorite spot, Original Pancake House.
Yeah.
If there's no other reason to get together, that's the reason to get together. But we got together and we spent some time, and he looked at his watch after we were together for an hour, and he said, Dale, I got to go, because what we're doing with Take Charge at that time was called Take Charge Minnesota. He hadn't yet announced his run for governor. But he said, I got to catch a flight, because what we're doing for Take Charge Minnesota, I've got to get to Connecticut because they're interested there. Okay? Since that time, we've gotten together once or twice again for breakfast. We've had the privilege of having Kendall and Sheila in our home for dinner. Had just a wonderful time together. It's time to get together again, by the way. OPH is calling. But this man and his wife, now Sheila, she's brilliant in and of herself. And she's doing a fair amount of writing for Alpha News. They discovered her, and she can't hide, not that she wants to, but she's doing some great writing for Alpha News. But Kendall and Sheila are doing a magnificent job as they are working to reestablish families, particularly in the black community. He's getting national recognition more and more frequently. God is using this man to advance the gospel in ways and in places where it's been very difficult to do so. So, Kendall, it's just an honor. It's a privilege to have you here. Would you please help us welcome our special guest, Mr. Kendall Qualls?
All right, good evening. Good evening. I'm going to stand up here so you can see me a little bit better. People always ask, and they come up to me and say, are you Kendall Qualls? I say, yeah, I know. I'm shorter and fatter in real person in life than you see me otherwise. So, guys, listen, what you're going to hear from me is easy for me because, I just speak the truth. We market in the truth.
Exactly.
And so I don't have to make anything up.
Yep.
So here's what I can tell you. So, Dale, thank you so much for that. And I do want to honor those people that are on the front lines. We have an elected county commissioner here. I can't see where you raise your hand. And also a representative that was just here. You guys on the front lines, God bless you. We need to make sure that you're supported and that, that you're advancing truth. Now, I'm going to tell you that my message is not Republican, Democrat. It's an American message. It's a Christian message because those are the foundations of what this country was built on. Now, my parents were Democrats, but they didn't hate the country. They didn't. This is not what they were like signing up for. So this is very different. And I'm going to tell you why today. I'm going to tell you why I'm involved, why we're involved, what we're about, and again, what's at stake for you, and how can you help? People say, well, geez, they've got all levels of branches. Again, this is not a political message, but I'm a military guy. My dad spent 25 years in the Army. My father-in-law, 30 years. He was in the Korean War and Vietnam War. I spent time on a DMZ. My son is on active duty, deployed in a dangerous location. And so when you hear, man, we're surrounded. There's nothing. We have nothing. And then, you know what? If you're a believer in God, he says, good. We got him where we want him. And literally what's happening right now is literally Old Testament time. When you say, hey, we want this, God says, okay, I've been trying to warn you. Now you got it. Right now, we're looking at difference of not political parties, but what's good and evil. There is no middle anymore. You have to choose what line do you sign up for. It's amazing to me now. Liz Collins, who's at Alpha News, she interviewed this young lady. She's gay. But see, you got gay people coming out against groomers, and this whole thing that just happened with this transgender thing. But it's getting so bad that even gay people are coming out against them. I'm telling you, this gets evil, and even if you're not in the faith, you got to be saying like, oh, "Holy smoke! I didn't sign up for this." Yeah. Okay, so let's go through this. I'm going to give you an idea of, if this is your first time hearing me, you hear a little bit about me, why I'm doing this, about take charge, how we got here, and basically the essence is, after I ran for office and people were telling me, "Kendall, you can't. How can you expect to do these things legislatively?" I said, "You don't need to do them legislatively. Use your leadership influence." America didn't get where it is from the top down, it's from bottom up. And so a lot of the things that we're doing, is a grassroots movement that brings us back to our roots as a country, especially in the black community. When I was a kid, I tell people 80% of our families were two-parent families. Today, 80% fatherless homes, because we shifted our dependency in government over God. And it's been a 50-year, it's literally wandering in the desert for 50 years, following and worshiping the wrong people. And I'm shocked. I haven't been involved. I've been raising my family, been in the private sector my entire adult life. I got involved in politics just for a little bit. I'm looking under the hood of this thing. Well, holy smoke! All of this evil's been abounding, and we haven't been paying attention. Right. And it's because we haven't been paying attention is the reason why we're here today. Right. But there's still hope. So let me kind of go through this. So Take Charge is basically this. It's an organization that really kind of supported the notion that the promise of America is available to anyone, regardless of race, regardless of social standing. And I came out against this because what the progressive were promoting was, oh, we got this white privilege, we got systemic racism. Listen, my parents lived through systemic racism. Okay, this is not the same country. I tell people that my family, my parents and grandparents would have loved to have grown up in the America that I grew up in. This is not the same. We never talk about the progress. We never talk about the differences. So people will say, well, what about all the disparities we have? Yes, we do have huge disparities, but it's not white privilege, it's two-parent privilege. It's two-parent privilege, and we're going to talk about this and why they don't want to even bring that subject up, because they're heading for your families next, okay? So this is what the organization stands for, 5 pillars. That first pillar is that promise of America works for everyone. Second pillar is that the private sector is the fastest, most equitable way to get to prosperity. Private sector. Number 3, in order to play in the private sector, think about a football field. You've got to be prepared to play in the private sector, and it starts with a good education. All of my education has been the public education, public school. Half of that time has been in inner city Harlem with my divorced mom up to 5th grade, and the other part was been with my father, who came and got me and my younger brother to live with him in Oklahoma, in a trailer park in Oklahoma. Now, I didn't get the best education, but I got enough because even back then, the standards were high, even in those schools that weren't necessarily in the best zip codes. And I made it. I said, look, you know what? If this promise of America works, I'm going to do everything I can. The formula works. Even for a ghetto kid, trailer trash, people call me a lot of bad other things, but here's the thing I learned: where you start in life is not where you have to stay in life in this country. There is a pathway out. So that 4th pillar is, hey, we need to rebuild the two-parent black family, because that's what it used to be, locally and nationally. And you know what? We need to do that across all races, and we'll talk about that as well. That last one is the first job of any public official is the safety and security of your citizens. You are elected in a position, and if your citizens are being accosted, determined, it's your job to make sure they're safe. And what's happening right now in our Twin Cities is a dereliction of duty, absolute dereliction of duty. Yes. Did you know in October 2009, Forbes magazine had on the cover, after evaluating 25 major cities, on the cover of their magazine said Minneapolis is the safest, cleanest city in the nation. Wow. October 2009. Look how far we dropped. Yes. And so we'll talk about that one a little bit later too. All right, so I'm going through this quickly. Make sure I might need some help back there. Could you advance that next slide, please? Are we stuck? You hit the space bar or something, or the arrow bar. You might be frozen. Anyway, I'm trying to remember. Oh, I can see it right there. So, we promote the truth, and all right, here we go. Let's see if it's working now. Nope. Yeah, I'm you know, because I can see the next slide up there, but it's a bridge slide. All right, we'll figure this out. So literally, what we've done is we remind Black Americans, especially with the two-parent family, where we used to be. Mm-hmm. Even in the worst of times, our families were two-parent families, devoted to three things: faith, family, and education, the traditional Christian faith. That bridges all the way through the 1960s until the federal government, first time in American history, the federal government financially incentivized women to have children outside of marriage. And that was with the aid to family with dependent children. That was the catalyst that you saw a steep decline in marriage and non-marital birth rates. Do you know right now in the Twin Cities, and this is absolutely, it's tragic, nearly 90% of kids every year are born without a father in the home. Hispanic communities about 60%. General white communities about 25, 30%. But even that was a crisis 50 years ago. Yes. And so we have a major issue, and no one's ringing the alarm bell on this. When I looked at this, I said, holy smoke, why has the alarm bell? So our church, we went to church in Plymouth. We go to a new church now. But one of the things I talked to the pastors about, look, don't jump on this social justice movement in our churches. Mm-hmm. That's right. The issue of disparity is not what we hear in the world. It is this fatherless home issue. The church should be the first ones to be talking about us moving away from God's design. Now, I share this with you only because, look, like I said, I market the truth. I have nothing to gain in this. If Sheila and I wanted to earn a lot of money doing this, we could go on the other side talking about the DEI and everything, and the country is so racist. We could literally make $25,000 every talk because that's what they do. 25 grand out of taxpayer money. But this is we market in the truth. Let's try to click it again. Let's see. Oh, here we go. All right, now we're cooking with gas. Oh, but it's changing there, but not there. Or did it? Oh, there we go. Yes. All right. So here, let me just share something with you. Let me talk about most Americans. This is worth 2 college credit hours because they don't teach this in school. That's right. Yes. Black America. So this is between 1860, so right after the Civil War, 1860 to 1900. Yeah. Booker T. Washington. That's that picture there, the big picture. He wrote in his book that he published in 1907 that 22% of Black Americans owned their own home in 1900 by 1900. 22%. Of those 22% that owned a home, 76% of them owned it outright. Outright with no debt. So even at that time, when the worst of time, we were coming out and we understood the mechanics and the issues related to our communities. And again, we're families. It wasn't until, hey, we're with the government and we're here to help you. So, here we stuck again. So this next slide, you can help me out there. So I already talked about this next slide about the aid to family with dependent children. This happened right when I was a kid, and I saw this happen. They were marketing this program in every major city in the late 60s and early 70s. Talk about a social experiment. And at first, it seemed like, oh, we're here to help. No, there was a bigger agenda. That's right. And when I learned about this, I said, well, wait a minute. Why wasn't there an attempt to reverse the trend? There has not been one attempt to reverse the trend of two-parent families in 50 years until now. We're doing it with Take Charge. We're doing it. We're not going to let this happen. But not even in our communities, in the people that should have been doing it, should be leading it. They're getting paid. Behind the scenes, they're getting paid to keep the status quo, to blame other people for what's going on right now. They know better. But if you this tells you, if you know the history of the world, people that are in power want to stay in permanent power. And if they pay off people that help them enable to do that. And so they're willing to basically to financially incentivize themselves at the expense of others. Then you understand looking at this from a biblical perspective, from God's, that this is good and evil we're fighting against. And so what are we doing? I'm going to try to go through this and see. Here we go. So we talked about the decline of next slide, there we go. We talked about the decline of families and birth rates. So we see that. I've already talked about that. So what we've built here at Take Charge, every month so we've been around 2.5 years, every month that we've been around, we get new people from the black community coming join our cause because they too are disheartened by what's happened to the community. And we have over 50 people involved with us, not one of them compensated, and they want to help us turn the culture back to its roots of faith, family, and education. We have people that are former gangbangers. We have people that have been, straight, they followed mom and dad's direction ever since the beginning of time. They've been former corporate attorneys. We've got people that are in corporate. We've got some great messages. I'm going to share with you some of the things that we're going to. Can we get the audio on that?
About race, identity, and privilege.
To have a real conversation about Black lives in America.
And be honest about who is taking advantage of us and keeping us divided. There's a difference between being woke and being awakened.
There's a new movement growing in America
To restore the institution of the Black family and secure our full rights and privileges as Americans. We invite you to join us.
We invite you to join us.
We invite you to join us.
And take charge of our culture.
And our future.
Now, I share that with you because all of those people there, when I started, I didn't even know them. I didn't know them for 6 months. I started this thing in 6 months. I didn't even know who they were. They wanted to do it because we're marketing truth. None of them compensated. Didn't know them. They all came in from different backgrounds. And you might say, well, why is there so much emphasis on the black family? Well, we were the first line of attack. How cool will it be to have this like a cavalry of cavalry guys, of black families on horses run and leading this country back, and everybody that's joining us because we were the first ones they attacked. And boy, I tell you, I can't wait. Charging through on this like the cavalry. It's going to be cool. Trust me. So here's the other thing. Let me go back.
We need to talk.
We need to
talk.
We need to talk. There we go. One of the other things we do, we fight back against the negative issue of critical race theory and expose what this organization, what these people are all about. They're using race to drive a political agenda. These people, hey, look, I tell people all the time, just because we have the same skin color doesn't mean we're on the same team. These people have a Marxist ideology, and most kids don't understand what Marxist ideology is. They don't get it. They don't know that people that promoted Marxism were responsible for tens of millions of people's death because they wanted their way or the highway. And it starts with put your name on a list if you disagree with them or you voice opposition. Well, I'm going to tell you, put my name on the top of that list. I'm going to tell you right now. I don't know where Dale. Dale, not you're not going to be first. I want to be first on that list. And also that representative that got accosted, you let her know I'll sign up to be her security. I dare someone to come up to her. I'll protect her. So guys, we need to be courageous, and because we're the righteous courageous. We don't need to be fools, obviously, but be courageous in what we're doing because what we're standing up is for truth. So I'm going to share this video. This video is a snippet of what our teachers, high school and middle school teachers, were taught in Minnesota so they could teach their students. This is their training that they've already had 2 years ago. All right, here we go. All right, maybe you guys can help me back there. Well, I got battery power. You just
No, we need to decolonize and disrupt whiteness. It is so, it pervades.
You can hit it again.
Everything that we do, how we start a meeting, even agenda items. That's whiteness, right?
We're going to push these systems, and we're going to use these systems for the best of our ability. And then, when we can destroy them, we're going to keep. Destroying. So destroying capitalism is a part of our freedom dream. It's a part of the long-term goal. But like we know, folks like this tell us is that we need a 40-year plan. We need a 50-year plan for freedom. And anti-capitalism is part of that 50, 60-year plan towards freedom.
This is being taught in our schools. This is being taught in our schools. And in fact, to the teachers union here locally and the one nationally, president of the teachers union, when they were on strike, they said, we're at war against the patriarchy. That's me, that's the nuclear family. And we're at war against capitalism. Well, my question is, if you're at war against capitalism, what are you promoting instead? There's only two other systems I know. And those two systems were failures. They've been repeated failures around the world. And the other part of it is, if you're promoting what does that have to do with the teaching of our kids? Teaching them math, teaching them reading, teaching everything else with your political agenda of anti-capitalism. We have an agenda. We have an agenda that they're promoting with our tax dollars in our public schools. My wife Sheila, as Dale had mentioned, she just produced, and they're just wrapping up. If you haven't seen it, if you haven't listened to it, I would suggest you do. She's done a 5-part series on what's going on in our public schools across the state, not just in the Twin Cities, but across the state from Moose Lake all the way down to Farmington. And in this in-depth series, she interviews teachers, parents, and students on what's really going on in our schools as academic decline, violence happens, basic administrators have turned on teachers. It's something it's not the same public schools that we grew up in, that we attended. It's same names on there, totally different agenda. So that's going on right now. Yes, ma'am. If you go to Alpha News platform, you'll see this that brand there on their platform. So it's on the Alpha News platform. In the first 5 days on the Apple Podcast platform, with over tens of thousands of different podcasters for education, it shot up and broke through the 100 top podcasts in the nation because of this issue going on and what people are hearing with their own ears. Sheila used to be a journalist before we had kids. We were married for 7 years before we had kids. And then when she decided to stay home with them, all of her family thought she was nuts, but we invested in our children. We homeschooled all of them. And I had no idea that we missed and we dodged an indoctrination bullet. We were very fortunate, and I'm blessed that Sheila invested her talents in our family and our children. So, top 100. If you haven't, the second series, not the third, or the next one is going to be one of the best. The next one's going to be great. Spend some time to take a listen and get informed. Okay. Here we go. All right. And all the while they're promoting a lot of this social agenda, what direction are our academic standards heading? It's all heading in the wrong direction. Look, a lot of you are native Minnesotans. I'm not. I came here through Medtronic. I was a global vice president of one of their business units and fell in love with the state. I wanted my kids to have their kids here and that all of our kids could then, raise their children here. And boy, I'm working to save that dream to happen, because this place, our education system, used to be a marquee in the nation, and it's heading in the wrong direction. It has been even before COVID. Okay, now this is the Anoka-Hennepin County directional system. I know you guys are not in that school system. The next one here. Some of the parents went to the school system and told them, hey, look, you know what, we're heading in the wrong direction. They're going like, well, we're above the state. We're doing better because we're above the state average. Well, look, the state standard is 90% proficiency. We're way below that line. The fact that when you can't have kids that are reading and doing math at grade level, they can't get out of the system. This is not just black kids in inner cities. I mean, this is happening, and I'll explain some other things that are happening that are a huge problem, but it's being done purposely. Now, here's the state numbers. Okay, you can click that one for me if it's not advancing. There we go. State numbers. In reading, we dipped. In reading, we dipped below the national average in the state for the first time. Now, here's what's happening, and Sheila's going to talk about this in one of her podcasts. What we're finding is that kids are graduating, they think they're doing well, they don't know American history. They don't know anything about the Civil War or why that Civil War was, who won it and who fought it, and what was the sacrifice of American lives in order that Abraham Lincoln freed American slaves. They don't know the sacrifices for that. They don't know the virtues of our country. Because here's the go. You can't be an advocate for your country if all you know is the negative components of our country. That's being done deliberately by these same people I showed you in the video that they want to promote all this social justice. Well, we want our kids to know the real history. Well, okay, then do the whole picture. I got the whole picture growing up. There wasn't any parts deleted for me. I know the good, bad, and ugly. What they're teaching is the bad and the ugly, and none of the good. And these kids don't even know it. They couldn't even pass the citizenship test. And Sheila will talk about this again. This I think this is a national security issue, that you're purposely teaching our kids not to be patriotic, not to know the Constitution, not to know about the history, because again, you can't be an advocate for your country. No other country would do that. It's from my perspective, it's borderline treason. Okay? All right, so we debunked critical race theory. I'm going to tell you, that video and those people in that video, we have many, many others. Right here in our state, we have the largest number of black Americans that denounce critical race theory, denounce Black Lives Matter, call for a need to get back to faith, family education, the largest number in a video library, kind of like a PragerU, in the country, right here in Minnesota, on our multimedia platform on our website. Largest one. This happened organically because people want to come and help, because we were at rock bottom in our culture. They hijacked our culture. And we're waiting to get it back, working to get it back. As I mentioned, we have two-parent privilege, not white privilege. I'm going to give you an idea. This is my family. My parents divorced when my father came back from Vietnam. My mother died at an early age at 55. There's 5 kids. And because we moved to Harlem, New York in the late 60s, early 70s, that's where my grandparents lived. We lived there and then got our own apartment. My sister, my older sister, my older brother, my younger brother, all were incarcerated. Again, when you have a broken home, you don't have a father in the home, you literally know what the statistics are in that environment. All of my nieces, so these are my brothers and sisters' kids, all of my nieces have become mothers without ever being married. My nephews, the majority of them have been incarcerated. And for whatever reason, God spared me. I'm the guy in the middle. I have this little stick figure family because we don't have a family picture together. There's not and it's sad, absolutely tragic. It's like a nuclear bomb went off our family because of that tragedy of a brokenness. And I'm doing this to warn Americans that this is not what God has intended for us. And if Satan can actually uproot the family, everything else becomes collateral damage. His job is much easier, and we're allowing it to happen. So for me, personally, my Christian faith is the big thing for me, but it didn't start that way. I came to the Christian faith when I was 27 years old. I know what government surplus cheese tastes like. I know what powdered eggs taste like. And for me, it was, how do I distance myself from poverty as much as I can? I got not only a graduate, went to undergrad, I got a graduate degree, 2 graduate degrees, and I wanted to go in corporate America to accumulate as much wealth as I could to distance myself from there. But someone invited me to church. My first job out of the military, someone invited me to church when I was in Dallas, Texas, and Tony Evans was the pastor. I didn't know who Tony Evans was. But what I learned, he didn't preach the Bible, he taught. He was a teacher, not a preacher. And I learned really what God intended for men, as godly men, fathers and husbands, and what that responsibility is for his family. And I didn't know that before. And so 27 years later, I got baptized in that church. And over the course of my corporate job, we moved 9 times. We bought 9 different houses in 27 years. Max Lucado was one of our pastors. Joel Stoll used to be president of Moody Bible College, and then later president of Cornerstone in Michigan. We just had some great discipleship, and we just implemented what we learned. The formula for America works, and God's formula is even better. And that's what we just did. It sounds simplistic. Kendall, he doesn't seem that impressive. I'm not. I tell people, look, we live in an exceptional country. I serve an exceptional God. What's happened to me can happen to anybody, and it has to millions of us, regardless of our skin color. They want to screw that up. They want to screw up the formula, and I'm not going to let them. And we're here to stop them. So for me, the biggest joy for me was being a dad, because I didn't have that. My father was a drill sergeant in the Army. There wasn't a lot of love. The only thing it was like iron and steel all the time. Iron and steel. You make one mistake, that was it. Next mistake you make, you lost your limb. But I enjoyed being a father. It was such a delight. I took our kids. We lived all over the country, and I took everywhere. We took a history lesson. The bottom right is Mount Vernon. The top left is Washington, D.C. The one down in the bottom in the middle is dark. You can't see it. I had my 2 boys. Took them to West Point. We've been to the Midway aircraft carrier in San Diego. We've been to Washington's Crossing on December and watched the reenactment of Washington Crossing. We've been to Gettysburg. All of the kids, they got a chance to see the country, and they got real history. Okay? We've been to plantations in the South and everything. I just enjoy being a dad. Now, it was chaotic at times, but I enjoy it. I absolutely enjoy it. And the boys, especially when we got teenagers, tried to be knuckleheads, and they need a strong father to keep them in place, right? And so it was a long journey to get here. And my sibling, the contrast of this, in one generation, We can do this. It happened in this country. This is why I stood up to fight against this narrative that I was hearing from Ilhan Omar and others. Are you kidding me? This is not the same countries my father grew up in. If I can do this with the formula that works, now everyone's journey is going to be a little bit different, but it works. And I'm just, so God honored. I'm honored to be here with you tonight, just to give you encouragement that, you know what, we have them right where we want them. Because people are going to decide whether they're going to line up with. Like I said, even people that are, have chosen the gay lifestyle saying, look, this is not what we want to sign up for. Even they know it's wacky. And look, and it's always funny. Tony Evans said, hey, look, guys, as Christians, we're so quiet, we stand marginalized. They want us to sit down and shut up, and we do it. They said, look, you might as well come out of the closet. Everyone else is, okay? And that's what I'm doing. You know what? I'm not badgering and I'm not being belligerent with people, but I share part of my faith only because that's just who I am. I don't wear it on my sleeve. But I'm not going to shy away from it either. So we did a poll, and this is a high quality, like a political poll, nationally with Black Americans. And this poll, nearly 80% of these people across the country are registered Democrats. And here's the question we asked them. When making decisions in your life, which of these organizations most influence your decisions? And we have the church, the Democratic Party, Republican Party, Black Lives Matter, NAACP, the Urban League, and other. None of the above. None of the above got the most. Black Lives Matter, single digits. I think, what is that? 7%. NAACP got 8%. The church got 23%. But hey, look, at the end of the day, we have a media organization that doesn't get these people on the platform. You don't hear from them. You just hear from the zealots, the radicals. You don't hear from average, everyday Black Americans. In fact, I can tell you right here, here's another question we asked. I would support an organization that puts faith, two-parent families, and parental choice in education as the fundamental principles to Black prosperity in America. 52% agree with that statement. You never hear from these people. You never hear from them because they deliberately shut them out. This is what our platform is a platform of voice of the reasonable people in our community. It's how do we get back to the norm? Because it's not going to happen with these politicians. Okay? There is an agenda against the traditional nuclear family in our country. And so much so that, here we go. This organization, so National Council for Family Relations, is an organization to provide continuing credit hours for people that are family counselors, marriage counselors, and basically what they do is provide those credit hours so they can stay active with their license. This is from a training session they gave to these new counselors, and what they're doing in schools right now. And like white privilege, family privilege is an unacknowledged benefit, unearned benefit. Family privilege is a structural mechanism hidden within our white supremacist society. Basically, what they're saying is the nuclear family is white privilege. There's an attack on the traditional nuclear family, regardless of the skin color, because they know a strong family doesn't need government. A strong family is focused on God. They don't want that in our culture anymore. And let's see if I can get this next. So here's what we're doing to help address it.
After a 50-year decline in marriage and the crisis of fatherless homes in the Black community, it's time for a radical change.
Our culture in the Black community is single mothers, absent fathers.
We had already talked about marriage, and there never really was the right situation. I thought that it had to be perfect. But being involved with this organization, kind of looking at the statistics of children that come out of these fatherless homes.
It's time to get back to basics and return to our roots, starting with marriage.
Grew up in Chicago most of my life, most of my childhood. Single mother, 3 children, all different dads.
My parents were a really big influence to me on what marriage looked like. They've been married for about 40 years now. they do not come from healthy homes. They both grew up in very broken homes, a lot of like drugs and alcohol and just broken relationships, things like that. And so they always reminded us that they wanted something better.
As a child, I grew up in a married household, but my parents divorced at 11 years old, and I just remember being so confused and sad about it.
There was a lot of voices that said that like once you get married, then you're going to be just burdened down, you're in bondage, you're going to just be in chains, you know, you're not going to have the freedom that you could have if you were just single.
Having to talk to other people around me about marriage and encouraging that in my community, specifically within the Black community, I just thought I should lead with example. And I love who I'm with. We have these beautiful children. I have a child on the way. Why would we not just do it?
Marriage, for me, has given me a sense of stability, sense of joy, definitely, thankfulness.
Once you find that person that you're supposed to marry, that God has for you, that it's totally worth it. Like, jump right in with both feet. And I would encourage women to get married, to stay married, to love God, to raise their kids if they have any, and just be a light to your family, to your community, to everyone.
We had already been together for 16 years, so I just thought, well, we're just gonna pull the trigger and make it official, and nothing's gonna change. But there was this magical feeling of, oh my gosh, this is happening. Like, on my wedding day, I just couldn't, I felt like I could not hold back the tears. I was so happy.
So, story behind this one, she became a volunteer with us, saw what we were doing. She didn't believe in marriage because her parents, she said, got divorced. And she said, if I'm going to be a mentor, I need to walk the walk. And so after 16 years of living with this guy, she loved him and all that. She didn't just get married to him because of us, but she got married. And she thought it wasn't going to be a big deal, but she saw what a big deal it was. In her wedding party, there are people in their 30s and 40s had never been to a wedding before. This is how you change culture. We're not doing anything but speaking truth and holding up a light of truth. And people are coming, and it's changing lives. And, again, I didn't know any of these people. They're not getting compensated for this. I'm not going to go through, we have, some more videos. I'm not going to go through all of these here. See if I can get us back. All right. So here's something I want you with. This is something that we're going to work on. So what I'm sharing with you is what we're doing at Take Charge and how it's having an impact in our communities, even beyond the Black community. So this is something just shocking. So the Pew Research Center, they did a survey, did a study. The United States has the largest percentage of children of any country in the world that grow up without a father. Times 3. Times 3. Now, this is 2019. This is 4 years ago. Have you heard about this? Nope. They don't want you to hear about it. This should be priority number one for our country. And they don't want it to be. And we're going to make it. We're going to make it. I'm going to tell you what we're doing around it. And we know the statistic. We know what happened when these kids grow up without a dad in the home. They're not protectors. Look at that bottom left-hand corner. 120% higher chance of sexual and physical abuse, boys and girls, because the father's not there to protect them. Just tragic. It's almost like child abuse because we know 90% of the time what's going to happen. And it's time for us to stand up. The church should have been all over this. It just kills me. The church should have been all over this 50 years ago, regardless of skin color. This is out of the bounds of what God expected, and people are suffering for it for their lifetime, actually. So here's what are we doing about it? I tell my kids all the time, the world is full of problem identifiers. We need problem solvers. So here's what we're doing at Take Charge. We're implementing this year. This is going to be our first. It's going to be an annual award, the Fatherhood Impact Award. And our pastor, Mark Henry, at Revive Church in Brooklyn Park, he wrote a book called The Man Code. And these are some of the principles. He said, so what is the Fatherhood Award? What's the criteria? A real man assumes responsibility, exhibits godly character, honors his wife, trains his children, does not abandon his family and loves the church and loves God. That's the basic criteria there. And basically, we're making this award available to pastors across the state, across the country. Doesn't matter what color, doesn't matter. And we already have 7 pastors have signed up. 7 churches signed up. We've just launched it in a week. And what happens? So what do these guys get? These are the gifts, the benefits. Basically, the dad gets a monetary gift card, get a copy of the book, The Man Code, to get a certificate. And we're going to put out a half-page ad in a local paper basically stating the problem. The United States has the largest percentage of children growing up without a father in the home, highest percentage of country in the world. These men are examples of what we need more of, locally and nationally. And it's going to be a picture of these men with their churches, their pastors. And right now there's 7. I'm sure it's going to grow. And I know it's going to be great for their families. They got a trophy that they're going to have and they're going to keep for the rest of their lives. And it's going to be an honor. It's going to be a burr in the saddle of our friends on the left. Okay? And so God honored for this. And these pastors, so right now we have 2 suburban pastors. And Pastor Vern, if you like, you can be a part of this as well. So I thought, and you know what? It's time we start highlighting what good looks like. The grunt work, that the day-to-day things that men do to keep their families together, provide for a living, to protect their kids. I mean, hey, this is what we do in the Army. You take care of your troops, they'll take care of you, right? And we need to start elevating what good looks like. And the reasons why we have all these shootings in schools and the things the bad behaviors that we see in our culture is this problem right here. And we're going to address it. So basically, this is what we do. This is our little army and our little tactical plan. Let's take charge in the middle. We have our army of volunteers. We publish. I've been published in New York Post, the Federalist, and Star Tribune, and some of these others. And all over the country, we have podcasts that Sheila and I are doing. We speak across the state, we've been invited. Because of the work we're doing here, we got invited to Israel to speak on a panel. They're flying us there in 2 weeks to speak on what we're doing in Minneapolis, in Minnesota, across the state. And it's God honoring. It is honoring. I say that to you only to share how God is honoring the work that he's having us do. It's not to boast it up by any means. And so a lot of the videos and everything else, and so it is absolutely amazing. It's for the first time I got here, I said, man, God sent me a place where the only place in the country where they don't have a Krispy Kreme's donut shop. That's why I know I need to lose some weight, but man, God, really, Minnesota? And now I see why he brought me here, right? So it's great. We've produced a documentary right here as a direct response to what happened, the rioting of what happened in the Twin Cities. You see that? It's an hour-long documentary. It's long enough and short enough so you can have a conversation with family and friends afterwards. These are people from the Twin Cities going like, you know what, we don't agree with the response. We need to condemn this in their words. It's absolutely amazing. That is on our website, but also on Salem Now, so the Salem streaming. We're right next to Clarence Thomas in his documentary. I just God honoring. And so I'm almost done here. So this year we're producing a marriage documentary, beyond race, because the average age for marriage today, anyone knows the average age right now? It's like 30 is like the average age. If I waited to get married till I was 30, I don't know what kind of trouble I would have been in. Holy smoke. So we're doing this. We're going to be interviewing people that have lived together, who got married when they should have got married, but didn't get, some that missed the window of marriage and why they put career first and the whole thing. So we're helping young people reevaluate their reasons for not getting married, living together, even Christian couples. I just crazy. But hey, we'll go through this real quick and we'll let you take a look at it. This is a short one.
Well, the girl, sooner or later is going to start thinking about marriage. Marriage is out of the question. That's number one.
Marriage, that holy matrimony, that mystical union that brings us together, to heaven, to home, for better, for worse, in sickness and in health till death do us part. We must cancel marriage.
Why are you putting off marriage, young person? The average age of the married person, first time, is increasing.
We moved into a beautiful house. We had all these dreams of like getting married. I want kids.
I think that when people do choose to live together before marriage, often I think it's because they fear divorce.
To all women, get married as soon as you can and get divorced as often as you can, because you'll make 50% gross pre-tax dollars of somebody else's money, and you can keep, accumulating.
Why we're not married yet.
Well, it's economically just not a feasible idea. And to men, I urge all men never to get married.
But now we've been living in this house for a year and it's still no ring, Steve. So how do I get the ring, Steve? That's why I'm here.
I say this privately, I say it publicly. I was a moron, and there's no other woman in the world who put up with my crap for 28 years.
Do you take Shannon to be your wife, and do you promise to love and respect her as long as you both shall?
I do.
It's the right answer.
When I started my life out in the public housing projects of Harlem, New York, and the trailer park in Oklahoma, I had no idea I'd be producing documentaries about marriage, standing up here in Middle Minnesota talking about this stuff. But you know what? God has a plan that you just never, if you just be obedient and trust, and it's amazing. So we're winding up. I got invited to California. Dennis Prager, one of my op-eds, it said, "Welcome back, America. We missed you." And that op-ed is in the Christian Post. If you want to see that, we can get you a link. But he said, "That's great. But can you make that into a 5-minute video?" So I'm not going to take you through the 5-minute video. It's there, PragerU. Just type in PragerU in my name, and it's the 5-minute video of what America could be. The first, number one, is like five steps. Number one, return back to our Judeo-Christian roots. This whole idea that, there's separation church and state, blah, blah, blah. America was founded on Judeo-Christian roots. Even with that, they had people that didn't have Judeo-Christian roots wanted to come here because we incorporated those foundations into the culture of the country, and we prospered because of those roots. And we should not shy away from, no, we don't. You know what? There are a lot of Muslim people that know exactly how this country was founded and what those roots are, and they came here anyway. They came here anyway, okay? And other people that don't follow any religion, they benefited from those Judeo-Christian roots. So a 5-minute video. We're not going to go through it here. We're not going to go past it. And here's a shameless promotion. I have a book coming out end of the year. It's called The Prodigal Project. How do we get back to? And it's literally like the prodigal son. We left the ranch, right? We left. And what happens when you return home? Part of that is a little bit of my family background, all that. If you're interested, you can go to the website, kendallqualls.com, and fill out the information. We'll send you an email when the book is ready. I'm excited about this. Again, this was not on my agenda. This was not on my agenda of life. I just wanted to earn some money, get far away from poverty as I could, and potentially go down to Arizona and Florida like all the other Minnesotans. But God said, nope. God said, nope, you're not leaving. So funny. So anyway, this is what we're doing. This is how you fight back. You don't need an official title to do the things we're doing to be an American. Americans never did that. Think about the people that have helped build this country. They didn't have the title. The title came later, if it ever came at all. So just encouragement, if you're not involved in public politics, support a candidate that is. Find some way, either donor, volunteer. We need people to get involved civically, okay? Civically to help protect the foundations of who we are as a country. These politicians can't do it alone. We need to hold them accountable. And just remember that just getting back to the basics of our roots. Our kids, they're getting robbed of an education of who they are as American citizens. Everyone else around the world would love to be American citizens except our kids. Sad. So I just want to leave you with this, guys. I'm encouraged. I believe. I can't tell you when we're going to win this battle. I don't know the date, but I just know it's going to happen. They can't keep promoting the stuff they're promoting. They're constantly angry. They're constantly in bitter position, and there's no joy on that side of what they're promoting. There's not. And we don't need 50% of the people to say, okay, come on our side. We just need 10 to 20% of us shine the light, and a vast majority of people will come. We just need people to hold, even if you're getting tired, just have someone up hold it up for you. Thank you. God bless you. I guess I'll stay for here. Any questions there? Pastor Vern, I'll let you close us out here.
All right, I believe we're going to do a Q&A session, so let me get another mic out there and about. We'll have one on each side then. And it just seems to work better if I moderate, because people get going, and then when they get going, then it doesn't go well. We have a question right up at the front. All we need you to do is raise your hand, and everybody gets one question before we do a double.
Kendall, will you tell us again, I've heard it before, about your paper delivery route program back when you were still living in the, didn't you deliver paper?
Yeah, so my father was he was a child of the Great Depression. He didn't grow up he wasn't an adult in the Great Depression, but he came out of that. And so, like the kids today, hey, Dad, can I have yeah, you can absolutely have it. Go out and get a job, and and you can go buy. There was no giving you something. Everything, I had to work for it. And again, we're a broken family and all that, so I had a lot of. But I used to deliver newspapers. I was a paper boy, and the Sunday paper was always tough because it was the heaviest one. You had all the inserts, and so I had sometimes I didn't have a bike, so I had to walk it. I had to walk around and I had to come back and get the second load, and sometimes the third load because as my circulation grew. And I was only 12 and 13 at the time. But look, I don't complain about it. There are ways to earn a living in this country if you're willing to work. It's just if you're willing to work. I clean out veterinary. I worked at a vet. I cleaned out cages and all that. And look, I can't remember a time where I wasn't working. But thank you.
All right. Anybody else have a question? Raise your hand. Okay, we got one right there, and then we'll come back to the front.
I've heard you speak many times. Can you share a little bit about Sheila's background? Because she comes from a very interesting family.
Yes. Like I've heard you many times. Just you be quiet. So Sheila, Sheila would be here tonight. Actually, she's caring for her mom. So it just tells you the character of Sheila, and it's not to disparage her siblings by any means. She's one of 8. She's a middle child. Her father died 2 years ago. He was 92. As I mentioned, he was in the Korean War and Vietnam War. He gave her guardianship over her mother, his middle child, and the executorship of the estate to help manage that. So she's helping right now. Mom's in the hospital. Has been dealing with Alzheimer's for the last 10 years. And anyway, so Sheila and I met in high school. She, just like a lot of guys, the first thing I was interested in was, how smart she was. But and by the way, and she was beautiful, right? And but I didn't realize how smart she was. And for a lot of you my same age, one of her essays got picked up and was published in the newspaper, and she was still a teenager. And basically, the gist of it was this: Americans have such short-sightedness. We don't have an attention span. We lack apathy. Now it's because there's over 300 days now that the Iranians have held American hostages, and all we care about is who shot JR. You remember that? Remember that show? I was like, wow, that's my girlfriend. Boy, I'm so proud. So she had that writing ability. She graduated from college with 2 majors, one in English and journalism. So she's an English major, and she always corrects me. Told her I don't speak English, I speak American. But she has such a devotion. This journey in our faith, we came together. She earned her graduate degree, and when she went home, stayed home with the kids. I tell you, they thought she got calls from friends from all over the country. What are you doing? You have a master. You can earn. You know how much money you're doing when you're sacrificing. You're much better than that. You need to be out there. Her parents, family members. Are you crazy? Are you nuts? And we were committed to our faith. Now, it's not to say that women that worked are not committed to their faith. This was her personal decision of where she wanted to devote and invest her energies. And we decided to homeschool. She got the same call. Are you nuts? Are you crazy? You know how you're going to limit your kids? And they're going to be socially awkward and all that stuff. They're fine. And when they graduated from high school, they said, this was the best decision you ever made. So, yeah, thanks for that help along the way. I am so God honored to call her my wife. In my book, I talk a lot about our relationship and some surprises in there along the way. But she's in there heavily. So thank you for that. I love her to death. We've been married for 37 years in May. Next week, 37 years, and it's been an honor.
You must be an awesome salesman, because for someone that smart and that beautiful, and you talked her into being interested in you.
Yeah, I had to be. But people look at me now, going like, wow. They look at me, then they look at her. He must have been a football player. He must have money.
Vern, you're one to talk.
Go ahead, ma'am.
Okay, first of all, I want to congratulate you for schooling your kids in this day and age. I wish more parents would do that. But my question is, do you have any suggestions of how to deal with an otherwise good person, but there's several people I know that don't vote politically. They're probably not in this room. They don't vote politically like I am, and they think the Democrats, or they think this administration is doing such a great job, and I don't know where they're getting their information, because it's not. So how do you deal with somebody like that? And yet be kind,
Yes. Well, so here's the biggest thing you do. You can't say, hey, you're wrong, right? You say, look, at a certain time, Kodak was a great company. It was a Fortune 100 company. But if you still have that same memory of that, read what happened and how they diminished over time because they no longer stayed on top of the game. They stayed into innovation. Same with Blockbuster. The guys the CEO of Blockbuster said about Netflix, you know what? We're not worried about Netflix. At the end of the day, people want to go. They want to go and shop for their videos. They want to get out of the house and blah 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 blah. And here's the things that you think you know about someone or an organization, never stays the same. You always have to stay on top of what they're about. What's going on. You always have to stay on top. Yeah.
Could you please give her the mic back?
I keep hearing, pray for them, and I do. You pray for the scales fall off their eyes, but that was a good,
Yeah, just take it out of the political realm and just put it on the other things. Yeah. Here's one thing. I'm going to write this op-ed in July. So in July is the anniversary of the Korean War. Do you know? And we don't do enough in this country, I think, promoting the virtues of us as a country and what we do, and how no other country would have done it. That we free a country, we save them, and we don't make them a vassal. They're not a colony. We don't colonize. This country doesn't colonize. But now, after 3 generations after the Korean War, right, same ethnic group, the North Koreans are 4 inches shorter. Their life expectancy is 12 years shorter than the same ethnic, their cousins in the South. And the only difference is that their freedom has been guaranteed by the United States for the last 50 years. They've been, through nutrition, education, they're the number 15th economy in the world, and they're inches above their cousins in the North, and they live 12 years longer because they have freedom. And those are examples. Most kids don't know that. Most Americans don't know that. those are examples. Clear. There's a living case study. I was a kid. I can remember watching it. Because I wasn't that old, when they had East Berliners jumping over the wire to the West Berlin for. As a kid, I knew, well, what must be over there must be bad, and what must be over there is that. Our kids don't have that anymore. They don't know. Yes, sir.
Everything you've been saying tonight has been great. What we haven't talked about at all is uncorrupting the political election process. Do you have a plan for that?
Well, yeah, I do. So the question is, how do we uncorrupt the political process? We have to get ethical people elected. And, and again, I say this, Republican, Democrat, we know that, but you know what's interesting? This guy he announced his presidency, he said something I just thought was woefully enlightened and thoughtful, is Robert Kennedy Jr. I'm not promoting him, but he said, never in history have the good guys censored speech. And you know what? We need more people like that saying that on both sides. And we need to get more people of ethical backgrounds in political office. We need more regular Americans, not political politicians, not career politicians. I say political politicians, career politicians. We need regular Americans involved. Once you get power, then you make the changes, much like Ron DeSantis is doing in Florida. He has a commission where he's actually penalized, where they're going to prosecute, they're going to investigate, prosecute those that cheat, or develop a system. They should. That's the most precious thing that we have as citizens is that actual vote, and they should not be compromised. Even if your candidate loses, you should feel confident that, you know what, it was a fair election. Right now, we don't have that. And regardless of what the other side says, hey, do you think it was? Hey, look, it doesn't matter. If there's a perception, we have a problem because there's a perception. Get the confidence back. That's number one issue. That should be number one priority.
All right. Any other questions? Over here.
Earlier when Brian was talking, I've heard some stories come out of Britain and that they are totally opposed to this transgender movement. So if they've developed a glimmer of hope in it, so can we.
Absolutely. Europe has done this transgender thing for like a decade. They've learned what a big problem is. They have kids that have grown up and said, how dare you let this happen? You know what? It drives me nuts. So I have a big family. We have a lot of seasonal allergies. Every time I get Zyrtec D, I got to go behind the counter. But a kid can get transgender when they're 8, 9 years old. Okay, can I get Zyrtec D? No, you have to go behind the counter. What? I can get mutilated as a minor, but I can't get Zyrtec D without permission. We'll come back to this as a normative. We will get there. And I just posted on my Facebook page. I remember I was like that last generation, got on the plane. Would you like to sit in smoking or non-smoking section? Really? What if I always got the last seat in the non-smoking section, and you're right in front. The seat in front of me was smoking. When we let that go, how long are we going to let this thing go where men are competing, boys are competing against girls, and I hope it doesn't last as long as that whole smoking, non-smoking section. We get our senses back. Common sense comes back. Yes, sir.
Kendall, that whole thing with the fathers and putting them in the paper, that is just genius. That's awesome.
Thank you.
I want to ask about your kids. So are they seeing the vision of bringing family, marriage, and because we are in a generation of even our kids are really having a hard time with even finding it's kind of a scary time to be dating and all of that.
Yeah, it is sad. My next project after we win this battle, our next project, how do we do to remasculate American men? We're going to do that. So he was asking about our kids getting married. So our oldest son, he graduated from St. Olaf in 2019. He had a girlfriend, and they stayed, as they should, before marriage. He graduated in May of 2019, got married in June, and started this job in June. They've been married for 3.5 years. They're having their first child in July. And we're so honored. This is our first grandchild. But I can tell you, my middle son, who's on active duty, and he was, he's more introverted, so it's not as easy for him to find that we're kind of awkward, and it's different for him. So he got online, he used the online dating. He found this young lady, and they were dating. He thought things were going well, and hey, I'm gonna come back. I got to leave for 4th of July. How about we go into a 4th of July thing? He goes, she said, I don't do 4th of July. He goes, what? He goes, no, I do Juneteenth. He goes, well, he said, well, that's dumb. That was his first reaction. He didn't, you know what? He didn't know. So that relationship ended. So, because these kids are being told that the country's bad. You don't celebrate because the country's racist, systemic racist. Like they've been told that we lost generations of kids that have been lied to, and so they're finding their way, and they're going to continue to walk into the faith, and we're so honored that they're still in the faith. They go to church on their own and all that. It's always, we'll see. Our youngest one, we'll see.
All right. Anybody else?
Yeah, probably one more. All right, guys, I am so honored. If anything, I want to leave you encouragement. If anything, you see and hear these people, when you hold up the truth, when you stand up and they see people standing up as leaders, showing courage, courage is contagious. If anything, I want you to, in the scripture, depending on your Bible version, there's a quote in the Bible for every day, 365 verses, where it talks about don't be afraid or don't be fear. So 365 times throughout the Bible. And there's literally don't be afraid. Have courage, have faith. And more than anything, we need courage in our culture, and it'll take care of itself. God will take care of it as long as you stand up for him. Thank you.
Thank you, Kendall. And thank you to all of you for coming. And let me say the ones that Dale announced for next month, Thursday and Friday, especially Thursday, we should have a full house. We need to go after that. Invite everybody you can invite. Dieta, are the flyers available yet? Oh, yeah. Everyone's got them. Okay, good. Are there extras they can take and invite with? Yep, so feel free to take some extras. We need to have a full house so that as many people as possible can hear what is happening, what's going on, or what we can do about it. And I'm asked to announce that on Monday, May 1st, which is next week, Monday, in Malacca at the Recreational Park, at 5 o'clock, Liz Collin will be there talking about her book again and her experience and everything that's happened about their lying. So next week, Monday, Malacca at the Recreation Park building there. Keep that in mind. All right, other than that, thank you for coming. We appreciate it. Have an awesome night.